Harry Truman and the Atomic Bomb by Raico. The most spectacular episode of Harry Truman's presidency will never be forgotten but will be forever linked to his name. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima on August 6, 1945 and of Nagasaki 3 days later. Probably around 200,000 persons were killed in the attacks and through radiation poisoning. The vast majority were civilians, including several thousand Korean workers. 12 United States Navy flyers incarcerated in a Hiroshima jail were also among the dead. Great controversy has always surrounded the bombings. One thing Truman insisted on from the start was that the decision to use the bombs and the responsibility it entailed was his. Over the years, he gave different and contradictory grounds for his decision. Sometimes he implied that he acted simply out of revenge. To a clergyman who criticized him, Truman responded testily, quote, "Nobody is more disturbed over the use of atomic bombs than I am, but I was greatly disturbed over the unwarranted attack by the Japanese on Pearl Harbor and the murder of our prisoners of war. The only language they seem to understand is the one we have been using to bombard them." Unquote. Such reasoning will not impress anyone who fails to see how the brutality of the Japanese military could justify deadly retaliation against innocent men, women, and children. Truman doubtless was aware of this, so from time to time he advanced to other pretexts. On August 9, 1945, he stated, "The world will know that the first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, a military base. That was because we wished his first attack to avoid, insofar as possible, the killing of civilians." This, however, is absurd. Pearl Harbor was a military base. Hiroshima was a city, inhabited by some 300,000 people, which contained military elements. In any case, since the harbor was mined and the United States Navy and Air Force were in control of the waters around Japan, whatever troops were stationed in Hiroshima had been effectively neutralized. On other occasions, Truman claimed that Hiroshima was bombed because it was an industrial center, but as noted in the United States Strategic Bombing Survey, all major factories in Hiroshima were on the periphery of the city and escaped serious damage. The target was the center of the city. That Truman realized the kind of victims the bomb consumed is evident from his comment to his cabinet on August 10th, explaining his reluctance to drop a third bomb. Quote, "The thought of wiping out another 100,000 people was too horrible," unquote, he said. He didn't like the idea of killing all those kids, wiping out another 100,000 people, all those kids. Moreover, the notion that Hiroshima was a major military or industrial center is implausible on the face of it. The city has remained untouched through years of devastating air attacks on the Japanese home islands and never figured in Bomber Command's list of the 33 primary targets. Thus, the rationale for the atomic bombing has come to rest on a single colossal fabrication which has gained surprising currency, that they were necessary in order to save 500,000 or more American lives. These, supposedly, are the lives that would have been lost in the planned invasion of Kyushu in December, then in the all-out invasion of Homsi the next year, if that had been needed. But the worst-case scenario for a full-scale invasion of the Japanese home islands was 46,000 American lives lost. The ridiculously inflated figure of 500,000 for the potential death toll nearly twice the total of United States dead in all theaters in the Second World War, is now routinely repeated in high school and college textbooks and bandied about by ignorant commentators. Unsurprisingly, the prize for sheer fatuousness of this score goes to President George H. W. Bush, who claimed in 1991 that dropping the bomb spared millions of American lives. Still, Truman's multiple deceptions and self-deceptions are understandable, considering the horror he unleashed. It is equally understandable that the United States occupation authorities censored reports from the shattered cities and did not permit films and photographs of the thousands of corpses and the frightfully mutilated survivors to reach the public. Otherwise, Americans and the rest of the world might have drawn disturbing comparisons to scenes then coming to light from the Nazi concentration camps. The bombings were condemned as barbaric and unnecessary by high American military officers, including Eisenhower and MacArthur. The view of Admiral William D. Leahy, Truman's own chief of staff, was typical. Quote, "The use of this barbarous weapon at Hiroshima and Nagasaki was of no material assistance in our war against Japan. My own feeling was that in being the first to use it, we had adopted an ethical standard common to the barbarians of the Dark Ages. I was not taught to make wars in that fashion, and wars cannot be won by destroying women and children." Unquote. The political elite implicated in the atomic bombings feared a backlash that would aid and abet the rebirth of horrid pre-war isolationism. Apologies were rushed into print lest public disgust as the sickening war crime result in erosion of enthusiasm for the globalist project. No need to worry. A sea change had taken place in the attitudes of the American people. Then, and ever after, all surveys have shown that the great majority supported Truman, believing that the bombs were required to end the war and save hundreds of thousands of American lives, or, more likely, not really caring one way or the other. Those who might still be troubled by such a grisly exercise in cost-benefit analysis, innocent Japanese lives balanced against the lives of our allied servicemen, might reflect on the judgment of the Catholic philosopher G.E.M. Abercrombie, who insisted on the supremacy of moral rules, when, in Jan 1956, Truman was awarded an honorary degree by her university, Oxford, as Abercrombie protested. Truman was a war criminal, she contended, for what is the difference between the United States government massacring civilians from the air, as at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and the Nazis wiping out the inhabitants of some Czech or Polish village? Abercrombie's point is worth following up. Suppose that, when we invaded Germany in early 1945, our leaders had believed that executing all the inhabitants of Aachen or Trier or some other Rhineland city would finally break the will of the Germans and lead them to surrender. In this way, the war might have ended quickly, saving the lives of many Allied soldiers. Would that then have justified shooting tens of thousands of German civilians, including women and children? Yet how is that different from the atomic bombings?